Welcome back to Uncharted Mysteries, where we explore the greatest unsolved secrets of our ancient past. Scattered across the world lie relics that time has not erased, ruins, artifacts, and symbols that do not fit within the boundaries of accepted history. Buried under sand, sealed in stone, or submerged beneath the sea, they speak of civilizations whose knowledge, purpose, and origin remain unknown. Structures shaped with precision long before modern tools existed. Monuments raised by hands we can no longer identify. Scripts we cannot read. Stones we cannot explain. These are not footnotes. They are fractures in the story we thought we understood. And perhaps, beneath it all, there is a chapter missing. We begin with the one that has haunted explorers, scholars, and storytellers for centuries: the lost civilization of Atlantis. We begin with the one that has haunted explorers, scholars, and storytellers for centuries: the lost civilization of Atlantis. The story begins with Plato. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BC, the Greek philosopher describes an advanced island civilization located beyond the Pillars of Heracles, a reference generally believed to indicate the Strait of Gibraltar. According to Plato, Atlantis was a powerful naval empire, blessed with abundant resources, sophisticated architecture, and a highly organized society. Yet in a single day and night of catastrophe, it was swallowed by the sea and lost forever. Plato claimed the story was passed down to him through earlier Greek sources who had received it from Egyptian priests. In his account, Atlantis existed some 9,000 years before his time, placing it far outside the accepted timeline of known civilizations. The Atlanteans, once virtuous and wise, had become corrupt and imperialistic. Their punishment, Plato implied, was divine destruction. Since then, Atlantis has become one of the most enduring archaeological enigmas. Some interpret Plato's tale as allegory, a philosophical warning about hubris, not a literal history. Others view it as a distorted memory of a real place or culture, preserved through oral tradition and myth. Countless theories have been proposed about its possible location: the Azores, Santorini, Antarctica, the Caribbean, even under the ice of Greenland. None have been confirmed. Excavations of advanced prehistoric sites, such as Göbekli Tepe or Dvarka, have added to the intrigue, suggesting that complex societies may have existed earlier than previously assumed. Underwater anomalies, structures found off the coasts of Cuba, Japan, and India, have also been cited as potential evidence of sunken civilizations. However, mainstream archaeology has found no conclusive proof linking any site directly to Atlantis. The absence of physical remains has not stopped speculation. Some suggest that Atlantis was not a single island but a metaphor for a lost global culture, one that spread architectural, astronomical, and technological knowledge before vanishing due to cataclysmic events such as rising seas or asteroid impacts. Others invoke the possibility of tectonic shifts, tsunami destruction, or even pole shifts erasing its trace from history. Whether myth, memory, or misinterpretation, Atlantis remains the benchmark of lost civilization narratives. Its influence can be found in modern fiction, pseudoscience, and fringe archaeology, and its name continues to evoke images of forgotten grandeur and sunken wisdom. From the depths of Plato's imagination, or perhaps a drowned reality, we now move to a hill in southeastern Turkey, where circular enclosures and ancient pillars suggest ritual and society in an age before writing or cities. Göbekli Tepe. High on a windswept plateau in southeastern Turkey, where the plains of Mesopotamia fade into the hills, a hill once stood, unremarkable, quiet, forgotten. For centuries, locals called it Potbelly Hill. But beneath the soil lay something that would rewrite the story of civilization. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt began excavating the site. What he unearthed was not a simple village or a Bronze Age ruin, it was a temple. A temple older than any known before it. Göbekli Tepe is not just old, it is impossibly old. Radiocarbon dating places its construction around 9600 BCE, more than 11,000 years ago. That's 7,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza. Older than Stonehenge. Older than writing, agriculture, or the wheel. The sheer age of the site left archaeologists stunned. But what truly challenged everything we thought we knew was the complexity. Massive stone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, were arranged in circular enclosures. Each pillar was T-shaped, carved from limestone and raised with apparent precision. Many are adorned with bas-reliefs of animals, snakes, scorpions, wild boars, lions, birds, etched with artistic skill and symbolic intent. These creatures seem to guard or animate the site, as if part of a forgotten ritual language. The pillars are not scattered randomly. In each circle, 2 central columns rise taller than the rest, as if representing figures of power, deities, or something else entirely. No tools, no wheels, no draft animals, yet the builders managed to raise these monoliths and shape them with precision. How? There is no evidence of permanent dwellings nearby. No signs of agriculture. The people who built Göbekli Tepe were hunter-gatherers, at least, according to everything we thought we knew. And yet, they gathered in large numbers to construct a monument of scale and purpose. Some researchers now believe that religion or ritual may have come before farming, not the other way around. Even more puzzling, the site was deliberately buried. After centuries of use, its creators covered the megalithic enclosures with tons of soil, as if preserving it for someone, or something, else. Why? Was Göbekli Tepe a temple? A calendar? A sacred observatory? Some theorize that it tracked the stars, aligned to celestial events. Others see echoes of myth, suggesting this might be the world's first place of worship, built to connect with gods, spirits, or ancestors. And yet, the answers remain elusive. Only a fraction of the site has been uncovered. Beneath the surface, dozens more circles may lie hidden, waiting to speak. What drove these ancient people to carve stone into story? What knowledge did they carry, and where did it go? Göbekli Tepe stands in silence. A monument built before civilization, challenging the idea of when civilization even began. Now we turn from the highlands of Anatolia to the dry plains of South Asia, where another secret waits, not in stone, but in symbols yet to be read. The Indus Valley Script. Along the winding riverbeds of present-day Pakistan and northwest India, beneath layers of earth and centuries of silence, lie the remnants of one of the world's earliest urban civilizations, the Indus Valley Civilization. Its cities, including Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, flourished more than 4,000 years ago. They built with fired brick, laid out advanced drainage systems, and organized their streets in grids. They traded with Mesopotamia, worked in metallurgy, and cultivated cotton. And yet, for all their sophistication, the people of the Indus left behind a language that we still cannot read. Etched into tiny soapstone seals, pottery fragments, and copper tablets are rows of symbols, sometimes pictorial, sometimes abstract. These markings form what is now called the Indus Valley Script. Each seal is a window into a lost world, animals, humans, geometric shapes, and what appears to be text, short, compact inscriptions, rarely longer than 5 characters. Despite over a century of study, their meaning remains locked away. Unlike the Rosetta Stone, there is no bilingual inscription to guide us. Unlike cuneiform or hieroglyphs, the script has no long passages to analyze. Many scholars debate whether it is a full writing system or a set of proto-symbols used for trade, religious rites, or property marking. Some believe it encodes a Dravidian language, possibly related to Tamil. Others argue for a long-lost tongue, extinct with the fall of the Indus cities. Attempts at decipherment have involved everything from linguistic patterning to artificial intelligence. But the script resists interpretation. Its brevity is part of the challenge. Without longer texts, grammar cannot be determined. Without grammar, meaning remains elusive. And without meaning, the civilization's voice stays silent. What makes the mystery deeper is what surrounds the script: a civilization with no palaces, no grand temples, no monuments to kings or gods. No war inscriptions, no conquests carved into stone. Just orderly cities, uniform weights, standardized bricks, and this script, carved neatly into objects of everyday life. What were they writing about? Was it ownership? Prayer? Poetry? Could these tiny seals have held the laws of a society that once spanned more territory than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined? When the Indus Valley cities fell around 1900 BC, the script went with them. No one knows why the civilization declined. Climate change, river shifts, or gradual depopulation have all been proposed. But the collapse left behind a puzzle that has never been solved. Each seal is a message frozen in time, whispering across millennia in a language no one alive can hear. And from the dust of the Indus, we now move into the green void of the Amazon, where explorers have long chased whispers of a city that was once thought to be only legend. The lost city of Z. Deep in the dense, tangled green of the Amazon rainforest, where sunlight barely touches the forest floor and ancient rivers twist like serpents through the jungle, stories have lingered, stories of a great city hidden in the heart of darkness. It was called simply Z, a name born from hope, mystery, and obsession. For British explorer Percy Fawcett, it became the final pursuit of his life. In the early 20th century, Fawcett believed that remnants of an advanced, pre-Columbian civilization lay buried beneath the forest canopy of Brazil. He was convinced that deep within the jungle, beyond where any map could guide him, stood a city of stone, older than the Incas, untouched by modern hands. He called it the Lost City of Z. Inspired by strange ruins, local legends, and manuscripts like the 1753 document Manuscript 512, which described golden idols, walled cities, and tall archways seen by Portuguese explorers. Fawcett's belief ran counter to the prevailing views of his time. Most scholars thought the Amazon was too inhospitable to support complex societies. But Fawcett insisted the jungle was not a barrier, it was a veil. And behind it, a forgotten people had once thrived. In 1925, Fawcett set out on what would be his final expedition, accompanied by his son Jack and Jack's friend Raleigh Rimmel. They vanished without a trace. No bones, no letters, no gear, only a silence that would grow louder with every passing year. Their disappearance became one of the great unsolved mysteries of the exploration age, drawing adventurers, journalists, and treasure hunters into the jungle in search of clues. Some never returned. Was Z a myth? For decades, most believed so. The jungle seemed to mock the very idea of cities, too wet, too unstable, too wild. But in recent years, satellite imagery and ground surveys have begun to rewrite that narrative. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of massive earthworks, geometric mounds, and even ancient road systems hidden beneath the forest floor. Vast settlements, interconnected by causeways and canals, suggest that tens of thousands may have once lived in complex societies deep within the Amazon. These findings don't confirm the exact city Fawcett envisioned, but they suggest he wasn't entirely wrong. The forest may have swallowed civilizations far older and more intricate than anyone dared imagine. What did Fawcett find, or think he found, before the jungle took him? And if Z exists in some form, what other forgotten cities might still sleep beneath the leaves, their stones softened by moss, their stories erased by time? From the green chaos of the Amazon, we now follow the trail westward to the Iberian Peninsula, where ancient gold and strange texts point to a vanished culture that once danced between legend and empire. The Tartessos civilization. Along the sun-baked coastlines of southern Spain, where the Guadalquivir River empties into the Atlantic, whispers of a vanished civilization ripple through history. Ancient Greek writers spoke of a prosperous kingdom rich in metals and trade, known as Tartessos. Herodotus mentioned it. Strabo referenced it. They described a land filled with silver, gold, and tin, a place where kings ruled over advanced cities, and ships sailed freely to distant lands. But for all its wealth and power, Tartessos left behind no great stone temples, no written chronicles, no enduring monuments to its kings. Instead, it dissolved into mystery. Archaeological clues have surfaced over the centuries: burial mounds, strange artifacts, and the foundations of ancient settlements in the region of Andalusia. In particular, the site of El Carambolo near Seville revealed a dazzling treasure in 1958: gold jewelry, diadems, and breastplates buried carefully beneath the earth. The craftsmanship was exquisite, unlike anything seen from neighboring cultures at the time. Was it Tartessian? The Tartessians are believed to have flourished between the 9th and 6th centuries BC, possibly even earlier. They traded with the Phoenicians, absorbing influences in writing, art, and religion. Some researchers believe they had a written language, one that survives in fragments on stone and pottery, undeciphered and orphaned from any known script. Their metalworking was advanced, their economy maritime, their society structured. And yet by the 5th century BC, Tartessos disappears. The historical record goes silent. Cities once teeming with trade fell quiet. The gold was buried. The voices stopped. Why? Some suggest conflict with Carthage. Others point to environmental shifts, rivers changing course, floodplains drowning farmlands, trade routes collapsing. But there is no definitive answer. The civilization fades like smoke, leaving behind only traces. And then there are the theories that stretch further, ideas that Tartessos was not merely a local culture but something far older. Some connect it to Atlantis, drawing lines between Plato's myth and Spain's lost coastal kingdom. The overlap in geography, wealth, and sudden disappearance has fueled speculation for decades. But Tartessos, if it was ever truly known, now speaks only in fragments. Gold buried in the soil. Symbols carved into rock. A name echoed in ancient texts, but never fully understood. From this vanished kingdom of gold and silence, we now journey across the sea to Egypt, where beneath the sands, a structure long rumored in legend may still be hiding its full form. The lost labyrinth of Egypt. Beneath the scorching sun of the Fayum region in Egypt, near the ancient site of Hara, lies a place wrapped in silence and sand, a place once described as so vast and complex that even the Great Pyramids paled in comparison. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus claimed to have seen it with his own eyes. He called it the labyrinth, a sprawling complex of chambers, halls, and passageways that defied belief. Herodotus wasn't alone. Strabo, Diodorus Siculus, and Pliny the Elder all referenced the labyrinth in their writings. They described a structure with 12 courts, 3,000 rooms, half above ground, half below, and walls intricately carved with figures of gods and beasts. It was said to be the tomb of kings, a temple of cosmic order, and a monument to human engineering. Herodotus, known for exaggeration, wrote of many marvels. But the way he described the labyrinth held a tone of genuine awe. And yet, despite these accounts, no such structure stands above ground today. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, archaeologists explored the region around Hira, hoping to find proof. Sir Flinders Petrie, one of Egyptology's most renowned figures, uncovered a ruined temple complex near the Pyramid of Amenemhat III. There, he found massive stone blocks, foundations, and shafts, fragments of a structure once monumental in scale. Petrie concluded that he had found the remains of the fabled labyrinth, though others debated whether the size and complexity matched the ancient descriptions. More recent surveys using ground-penetrating radar have revealed subsurface anomalies, patterns beneath the earth that suggest the presence of large rectangular formations and corridors still buried. But political and logistical challenges have left these deeper areas largely unexplored. The full extent of what lies beneath Hira remains uncertain. Was the labyrinth real? Was it deliberately destroyed? Did it collapse under its own weight, or was it swallowed by rising groundwater and the slow violence of time? Or could it be that Herodotus and his contemporaries had glimpsed only part of the structure, its ruins already worn and fading, even then? Some theories propose a more symbolic reading, that the labyrinth was not just a building, but a cosmic map, a sacred diagram of creation and afterlife encoded in stone. Others suggested Howe's secret knowledge, books of stone, ancient archives, perhaps even technological artifacts long lost to history. But without excavation, the truth remains sealed. Just beneath the feet of tourists and farmers, beneath sand and sediment, the labyrinth may still wait, its halls dark and silent, its secrets untouched since the days of pharaohs. And from the dust of Hawara, we now move northward along the Nile, where a monument far more famous rises from the plateau, but one whose precision, scale, and purpose continue to spark debate across the world. The Great Pyramid of Giza. Rising from the Giza Plateau like a stone sentinel, the Great Pyramid stands not as a relic, but as a challenge. For over 4,500 years, it has loomed above the sands of Egypt, immense, exacting, silent. Built during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BC, it is the only remaining wonder of the ancient world. Yet for all its fame, the pyramid offers more questions than answers. At first glance, its form is simple, a geometric precision of four sides converging at a point. But beneath this simplicity lies staggering complexity. Originally standing at 146.6 meters, 481 feet, it was the tallest man-made structure on Earth for over 3,800 years. Composed of more than 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, some weighing up to 80 tons, the construction defies the assumed capabilities of its era. No mortar holds it together, only weight, pressure, and meticulous alignment. The joints between many stones are so tight that even a razor blade cannot pass through. Its base is nearly perfectly level. Its sides are oriented with extraordinary accuracy to the cardinal points. How this was achieved with copper tools, wooden sledges, and sheer manpower remains a source of debate. Inside, the architecture is equally enigmatic. The narrow descending passage, the unfinished subterranean chamber, the grand gallery, rising high like a sloped corridor of purpose unknown, the king's chamber, with its massive granite beams, the queen's chamber, misnamed, empty, and unresolved. Shafts extend from both chambers toward the stars, but to what end? Mainstream scholars view the pyramid as a tomb, a grand funerary monument for Pharaoh Khufu. Yet no mummy, no inscriptions, and no definitive grave goods have ever been found within. The structure itself contains no overt religious text, unlike later tombs of the New Kingdom. Its silence is total. Over the centuries, alternative theories have multiplied. Some suggest the pyramid was an observatory, aligned to celestial bodies. Others believe it encoded mathematical constants, pi, the golden ratio, the speed of light, though such connections remain debated. A few even speculate it was not a tomb at all, but a machine of unknown function, built for energy, water, or even sound. Despite its prominence, the Great Pyramid still hides secrets. In 2017, scientists using muon tomography discovered a large void above the Grand Gallery, an empty space, untouched since the time of its construction. Its purpose is unknown. No one has entered it. Why build with such precision? Why leave no record of how it was done? And if it was only a tomb, why go to such lengths? The Great Pyramid does not answer. It simply remains. And as its shadow stretches across the desert, we journey south and west, to a fortress of stone in the high Andes, one where the walls seem too perfect, and the cuts too sharp for the tools said to have shaped them. Sacsayhuaman stones. Perched on a hill overlooking the ancient city of Cusco in Peru, the walls of Sacsayhuaman stand as a monument to engineering that appears to defy explanation. Constructed by the Inca civilization, the site is thought to have been built during the 15th century, although some researchers argue that the foundations may be far older. What draws attention are not the ruins themselves, but the immense stones that form them, each cut and fitted with a level of precision that challenges modern assumptions about pre-Columbian construction. The largest stones in the complex weigh over 100 tons. Some are estimated to exceed 200 tons. Despite their irregular shapes, they are fitted together so tightly that no mortar was used, and not even a knife blade can slip between the joints. The stones are polygonal, their sides forming interlocking patterns. The walls curve and shift like flowing geometry, giving the impression of both strength and flexibility. These stones were quarried miles away and transported across challenging terrain, yet no written record exists to explain the methods used. The Incas lacked wheeled vehicles and iron tools. Traditional interpretations suggest the use of ramps, ropes, and coordinated labor, but the exact process remains unverified. The walls are earthquake-resistant, a trait not incidental but seemingly designed. Their interlocking patterns distribute seismic energy, allowing them to withstand centuries of tremors that have destroyed more recent constructions. This architectural resilience raises questions about the knowledge embedded within the design, whether it was the result of experience, experimentation, or inherited knowledge. Above the massive platforms, smaller structures once stood, many of which were dismantled or destroyed during the Spanish conquest. Stones from the upper levels were taken for building colonial churches and homes, while the foundational blocks, too massive to move, were left behind. Their survival, and their contrast with the later architecture around them, highlights their unique character. Some theories suggest that Sacsayhuaman was a fortress. Others view it as a ceremonial center. The alignment of its outer walls, the placement of its towers, and the terraces that descend from its flanks suggest both defensive and ritual functions. However, no definitive evidence confirms either role. The site has also become the focus of more speculative theories, which question whether the Inca inherited the foundation from a much older culture. The differences in construction style between the lower and upper courses of stonework fuel this debate, though no archaeological consensus supports such claims. To this day, the methods used to shape and place the stones remain uncertain. Were they softened with unknown techniques? Were they shaped through countless hours of abrasion and trial? Sacsayhuaman holds its silence, the stones locked in place as they have been for centuries. From the high ridges of the Andes, we now travel across continents to the ancient city of Baalbek, where stones even larger than these lie beneath a Roman temple, untouched and unmoved for millennia. The Baalbek megaliths. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, where the ruins of ancient temples rise from a sunlit plain, lie some of the largest worked stones in the ancient world. The site is known as Baalbek, once called Heliopolis during the Roman period. At its heart stands the Temple of Jupiter, one of the grandest temples of the Roman Empire. But it is not the towering columns or carved capitals that provoke the greatest mystery, it is the foundation beneath them. Embedded in the platform supporting the temple are three massive limestone blocks, collectively known as the trilithon. Each block is estimated to weigh approximately 800 tons. Nearby, still in the quarry, lie additional stones, unfinished or unused, one of which, the so-called Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighs an estimated 1,000 tons. More recently discovered blocks in the same quarry suggest even greater weights, possibly exceeding 1,200 tons. The scale and precision of these stones present a significant challenge to conventional engineering assumptions. The blocks are not only massive, but they are fitted with accuracy into the structure's core platform. The means by which such megaliths were cut, transported, and positioned without modern machinery remains unresolved. Roman construction techniques, though advanced, do not typically account for moving stones of this magnitude. The purpose of the massive platform is also uncertain. Some scholars argue that it was intended to stabilize the monumental temple above it. Others suggest that the megalithic base predates Roman occupation and may have been incorporated into the Roman temple structure. The differing architectural styles between the base and the superstructure lend support to this view, though no definitive evidence confirms a pre-Roman origin. Archaeological studies have uncovered layers of occupation dating back to the Phoenician and possibly earlier periods. The site may have held religious significance for centuries before Roman expansion. However, no records explain the motivation behind the construction of the megalithic foundation or the techniques used to create it. The logistics of moving such stones with ancient technology remains speculative. Theories include sledges, rollers, and coordinated labor, but practical reconstructions have not replicated the scale or precision involved. The idea that these stones were intended for structural necessity rather than symbolic display also remains debated. Baalbek's foundation blocks continue to challenge understanding. Their existence raises questions about the technological capabilities of ancient builders and the legacy of architectural ambition left in stone. From the valley floor of Baalbek, we move to the rolling plains of southern England, where a circle of standing stones forms one of the most iconic and enigmatic monuments in the world. Stonehenge. On the Salisbury Plain of southern England, a ring of standing stones rises against the horizon, weathered by wind, rain, and centuries of speculation. Stonehenge, composed of massive sarsens and smaller bluestones, has stood for over 4,000 years. Though it is one of the most studied prehistoric monuments in the world, its origin, construction, and purpose remains subject to ongoing debate. The main stone circle, arranged in a horseshoe and outer ring configuration, was constructed during the 3rd millennium BC. The upright sarsen stones, some reaching 9 meters in height and weighing up to 25 tons, were transported from Marlborough Downs, over 20 kilometers away. Even more puzzling are the bluestones, smaller in size but still massive by prehistoric standards, which originated in the Preseli Hills of Wales, nearly 250 kilometers to the west. The logistics of transporting and erecting these stones without wheeled vehicles or metal tools remain uncertain. Experimental archaeology has attempted to replicate the methods that might have been used, including the use of sledges, wooden rollers, and waterways. However, such reconstructions, while plausible on a limited scale, do not fully explain the organization, labor force, and precision required for the construction as a whole. The layout of the stones reveals deliberate alignments. The most prominent is the orientation of the monument toward the summer solstice sunrise and the winter solstice sunset. This suggests an astronomical or calendrical function. Additional theories propose that Stonehenge was a site for ancestor worship, healing rituals, or social gathering. Some researchers view it as part of a larger ritual landscape, linked to nearby sites such as Dington Walls and the Avenue. Excavations have revealed that Stonehenge was not built in a single phase, but evolved over many centuries. Post holes, ditches, and burial mounds surrounding the site point to long-term ceremonial use. Human remains found nearby, some dating from the earliest phases of the monument, show signs of travel from distant regions, indicating that the site may have attracted visitors from across prehistoric Britain. Despite its familiarity, much about Stonehenge remains unknown. The cultural motivations for its construction, the identities of its builders, and the specific rituals performed within its circle are matters of interpretation. Its enduring presence has inspired a wide range of hypotheses, including those that attribute its design to forgotten sciences or symbolic systems no longer understood. No written records exist from the time of its construction. The meaning of the stones must be inferred from their arrangement, material, and context. While modern tools allow for detailed mapping and analysis, the intentions of the Neolithic builders continue to elude definitive explanation. From the quiet fields of Wiltshire, where ancient stones trace the sun's path, we now travel to the sacred city of Abydos, where a structure beneath a temple may preserve architectural forms far older than its visible walls suggest. The Osirian at Abydos. In the ancient city of Abydos, one of Egypt's most sacred religious centers, lies a structure partially submerged and partially hidden, overlooked by time and overshadowed by the more ornate temple of Seti I built above it. Known as the Osirian, this enigmatic building stands in stark contrast to the surrounding architecture. Its megalithic construction, unadorned walls, and precise geometry have led many to question not just its purpose, but its origin. The Osirian is located at the rear of Seti I's temple, and unlike the carved reliefs and hieroglyphic inscriptions that characterize most Egyptian religious monuments, it is built from massive granite blocks fitted together with extraordinary precision. The core chamber features central stone pillars arranged in a rectangular formation, surrounded by a trench that fills with groundwater, creating a natural moat that gives the impression of an intentional symbolic design. The chamber is accessed through a long descending passage, suggesting a ceremonial or initiatory function. Mainstream Egyptology places the construction of the Osirian during the reign of Seti I in the 13th century BC, associating it directly with his temple. However, the stark difference in architectural style has prompted alternative interpretations. The Osirian's use of cyclopean masonry, enormous blocks weighing tens of tons, shaped and placed with high precision, is more reminiscent of megalithic sites found in other parts of the ancient world, such as Sacsayhuaman in Peru or Baalbek in Lebanon. Unlike the adjacent temple, the Osirian bears minimal decoration. There are no grand reliefs, no lengthy inscriptions. Later visitors added graffiti and inscriptions, including references to Osiris, which eventually lent the structure its name. Some scholars interpret the Osirian as a symbolic tomb of Osiris, the god of death and rebirth, though no burial has ever been discovered there. The function of the structure remains debated. Was it a cenotaph, a ritual site, or part of an earlier foundation upon which the Temple of Seti I was built? The water that constantly fills the central area has led to theories linking the structure to the Nile's symbolism of regeneration. The alignment of the pillars and chambers also raises questions about possible astronomical or cosmological functions, though these remain speculative. One of the primary controversies surrounding the Osirian involves its dating. Critics of the conventional timeline argue that the construction techniques and architectural styles suggest a much earlier origin, potentially predating dynastic Egypt. This theory, though lacking concrete evidence, persists due to the unusual nature of the site in comparison to other known Egyptian structures. Despite extensive studies, the Osirian has not been fully excavated or documented. The presence of groundwater, combined with the fragility of the surrounding site, has limited research. As a result, much of its internal design and potential subterranean features remain unknown. What knowledge or function was once embedded in this stark and silent structure? From the still waters of Abydos, we now turn eastward, to a sunken realm near Japan's coast, where undersea terraces of stone have stirred debate about whether they are the work of nature, or something far older. The Yonaguni Monument. Off the southern coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, beneath the crashing waves of the East China Sea, lies a submerged formation that has captivated divers, geologists, and archaeologists alike. Discovered in 1986 by a local diver exploring the area for hammerhead sharks, the structure quickly drew attention for its strikingly geometric appearance: stepped terraces, flat surfaces, right angles, and sharp corners that seem to define natural formation. Today, it is widely referred to as the Yonaguni Monument, though its classification remains fiercely debated. The monument lies approximately 25 meters below the surface and stretches over 100 meters in length. Its most prominent feature is a flat, table-like formation with what appear to be broad steps or platforms ascending to a towering peak. Nearby features include isolated megalithic-looking blocks, straight trenches, and what some claim to be carved staircases and platforms. Certain areas even resemble walls or corridors, and a few observers have pointed to what they interpret as possible symbols or carvings. Proponents of the artificial origin theory argue that the regularity of the shapes, the alignment of features, and the overall layout suggest intentional construction. Some believe it could be the remnants of a long-lost civilization, possibly connected to the Jomon period of Japan or even an older, undocumented culture predating known East Asian history. Comparisons have been made to other ancient megalithic sites around the world, suggesting a broader pattern of unknown prehistoric engineering. The depth of the structure suggests that if it were once above sea level and artificially created, it would have been constructed over 10,000 years ago, during the last ice age, when sea levels were significantly lower. This dating, if confirmed, would place it among the oldest known human-built structures on Earth, though such a timeline remains speculative and unproven. Mainstream geologists and archaeologists offer a more conservative explanation. They argue that the Yonaguni Formation is a natural geological structure formed by the fracturing of sandstone due to tectonic activity, combined with erosion by waves, currents, and earthquakes. According to this view, the seemingly artificial features are the result of natural weathering processes acting on stratified rock with horizontal bedding planes and vertical fractures. Despite decades of debate, no consensus has been reached. Divers continue to explore the site, and documentaries and publications have kept public interest alive. However, detailed underwater excavation has not been conducted at a scale sufficient to confirm or disprove artificial intervention definitively. The Yonaguni Monument remains one of the most enigmatic underwater sites in the world. Its sharp lines and vast scale continue to invite speculation. Is it the work of nature's relentless forces, or the last submerged echo of a forgotten culture? From the submerged terraces of Yonaguni, we journey inland to the volcanic landscapes of India, where an entire temple appears to have been carved, not built, directly from a single mountain of stone. The Kailasa Temple, Ellora. In the rocky hills of Maharashtra, India, where the Deccan Plateau breaks into basalt ridges and volcanic cliffs, a structure emerges from solid stone, not assembled block by block, but hewn downward into the heart of the mountain itself. Known as the Kailasa Temple, part of the larger Ellora cave complex, this monument stands as one of the most extraordinary feats of ancient engineering. Carved entirely from a single rock, it is a freestanding temple excavated from above, a method rarely seen on such a massive scale. The temple is officially designated Cave 16 at Ellora and is believed to have been commissioned by King Krishna I of the Rashtrakuta dynasty in the 8th century CE. Unlike other structures that are constructed by adding materials, the Kailasa Temple was removed from the mountain, subtracting an estimated 200,000 tons of volcanic rock. This was done using chisels, hammers, and basic hand tools, with workers beginning from the top of the rock and working their way down, a technique requiring extraordinary precision, planning, and vision. The result is an elaborate, three-dimensional space filled with pillars, shrines, stairways, and sculptures. The temple complex includes a central shrine dedicated to Lord Shiva, surrounded by smaller subsidiary shrines, halls, and a monumental gateway. The temple rises to a height of about 30 meters and is adorned with detailed carvings of deities, mythological scenes, and intricate patterns, all sculpted directly into the stone. What makes the Kailasa Temple particularly remarkable is the scale and symmetry of its construction. The pillars are evenly spaced, the walls are smooth and straight, and the architectural forms, arches, balconies, and inner sanctums, are consistent with structures built from modular materials, yet here they emerge seamlessly from the living rock. The illusion of traditional construction is preserved, though no stones were ever moved. Estimates of the time required to complete the temple vary, but many scholars agree that it would have taken hundreds of laborers several decades, possibly less if coordinated with advanced organization and planning. The absence of inscriptions detailing the methods of construction has led to various theories, both conventional and speculative. Some suggest that sophisticated knowledge of geometry, architecture, and project management was involved. Others question how such precision and scale could be achieved with the tools available during the 8th century. In addition to its architectural marvels, the temple holds religious and symbolic meaning. The layout reflects sacred geometries, and the iconography illustrates stories from Hindu scriptures, particularly the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Elephants sculpted at the base appear to support the structure like mythological guardians, while scenes of cosmic battles unfold across the walls. Despite centuries of exposure to weather and periods of neglect, much of the detail remains intact. The Kailasa temple has also drawn attention for its alignment and placement. Some researchers have explored its orientation with respect to celestial events, though such connections remain speculative. Its position within the Ellora complex, amid Jain and Buddhist cave temples, adds to its uniqueness, symbolizing a coexistence of spiritual traditions over time. How ancient craftsmen envisioned and executed such a monumental excavation without modern surveying tools or construction equipment is still unknown. The temple's completeness, architecturally sound, artistically rich, and spiritually resonant, continues to provoke admiration and inquiry. From the monolithic grandeur of Kailasa, we descend further east to the hidden caverns of China, where deep underground, mysterious chambers lie hollowed in silence, untouched by written explanation or historical record. The Longyu Caves. In the quiet town of Shurian-Beitsuan, nestled in the Zhejiang province of eastern China, a group of fishermen made a discovery in 1992 that would soon challenge historians, architects, and engineers alike. Curious about a pool of water that never seemed to dry up, they drained it, only to reveal a massive, hand-carved cave beneath the surface. What followed was the uncovering of an underground complex now known as the Longyu Caves, a sprawling network of enormous chambers, entirely excavated from solid sandstone, whose origin remains unknown. To date, over 20 caves have been discovered in the area, each one carefully carved with smooth walls, flat ceilings, and parallel striations that appear throughout the interior surfaces. The caves are up to 30 meters deep, with floor plans that extend over hundreds of square meters. Together, they comprise an excavation volume estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands of cubic meters. Each cave maintains structural integrity without the use of support pillars, and the roofs remain intact despite their size and age. There are no historical records mentioning the construction of the caves, no inscriptions within them, and no artifacts that would definitively date their creation. Despite their scale and proximity to known ancient settlements, they do not appear in any local oral tradition, historical text, or imperial archive. The complete silence of the historical record has added to the enigma of the site. The most striking feature of the Longyu Caves is their consistency. Every surface, including walls, columns, and ceilings, is covered in evenly spaced chisel marks forming a diagonal, ribbed pattern. The uniformity of these marks suggests a systematic method of excavation, possibly using specialized tools and a carefully coordinated labor force. The precision with which each chamber is constructed, flat planes, right angles, and consistent depth, points to an advanced understanding of geometry and engineering principles. Some chambers are connected through narrow corridors, while others are completely isolated. The acoustic properties within the caves also suggest deliberate planning. Sounds carry in specific ways, and the echo patterns differ from chamber to chamber. Whether this was intentional or incidental remains unproven. Mainstream theories propose that the caves may have served as storage areas, water reservoirs, or military shelters, though none of these explanations fully account for the scale, effort, and precision involved. There are no signs of soot or smoke damage on the ceilings, implying that artificial lighting would have been used sparingly or managed through methods not yet understood. Alternative hypotheses have suggested that the caves served ceremonial, astronomical, or symbolic functions. Others speculate that the construction occurred during a forgotten period of Chinese prehistory, potentially involving a culture whose records were erased or never documented. However, without datable artifacts or organic material, the true age and purpose of the caves remain speculative. What tools were used to carve such vast spaces into bedrock? How was the structural stability calculated in the absence of written plans or modern measurements? Why invest such massive labor into structures seemingly hidden from public view, and for what end? The Longyu Caves remain one of the most mysterious architectural feats in Asia. Their silence is total, and yet their presence is undeniable. From the subterranean halls of Longyu, We now turn westward to the Mediterranean, where a corroded artifact pulled from a sunken ship may hold the earliest traces of lost electrical knowledge, hidden within a humble clay jar. The Baghdad Battery. In the early 20th century, during excavations near Baghdad in the area of Khajurabu, a collection of small, unassuming artifacts was unearthed, objects that, at first glance, appeared to be nothing more than ancient storage vessels. Among them was a clay jar, approximately 13 centimeters tall, with a copper cylinder sealed with asphalt and containing an iron rod at its center. What seemed like a simple container quickly became a subject of intense speculation. Today, it is referred to as the Baghdad Battery. Dated to the Parthian or Sassanid period, between 150 BC and 250 CE, the artifact's structure has led some researchers to propose that it could have functioned as a galvanic cell, a primitive battery capable of producing an electrical charge when filled with an acidic or alkaline liquid such as vinegar or lemon juice. The combination of copper, iron, and an electrolyte in close proximity resembles the components of modern electrochemical cells. The idea was popularized in the 1930s by Wilhelm Koenig, the director of the Baghdad Museum at the time, who noted the similarity between the artifact and contemporary battery designs. Experimental reconstructions have demonstrated that replicas of the Baghdad Battery can indeed produce small amounts of electricity. These experiments have fueled theories that ancient peoples may have had knowledge of electrochemical principles long before such technologies were officially documented. However, mainstream scholars remain skeptical. There is no conclusive evidence of wires, connectors, or devices that would have used electrical current in the ancient Near East. No texts from the period describe the use of electricity, and the jars may have served entirely different purposes. Alternative theories suggest that the vessels were used for storing sacred scrolls, ritual objects, or for preserving metallic components in a protected environment. The absence of additional similar devices in the archaeological record complicates any definitive interpretation. Furthermore, the presence of bitumen and corrosion could indicate a sealing or insulation purpose unrelated to electrical function. Some scholars argue that the battery hypothesis relies more on modern projection than on contextual archaeological evidence. Nevertheless, the possibility that the Baghdad Battery represents a lost or isolated technological insight continues to inspire debate. If it was capable of producing electricity, what was it used for? Electroplating has been suggested, though no electroplated artifacts from the relevant period have been confirmed. Others speculate that it may have had ceremonial or experimental use, perhaps in temples or workshops where natural phenomena were studied and manipulated in ways now forgotten. Without written records or a clear context, the Baghdad Battery remains an enigma, too elaborate to ignore, too isolated to confirm. From the deserts of Mesopotamia, where clay and copper may have sparked hidden currents, we now journey to the heart of ancient Egypt, where a delicate artifact shaped like a bird continues to raise questions about flight and form in the time of the pharaohs. The Saqqara bird. In 1898, during excavations at the tomb of Pa-Diamen in the Saqqara necropolis of Egypt, archaeologists uncovered a small wooden object unlike any other in the surrounding burial context. The artifact, dated to around 200 BC, was shaped like a bird but lacked the fine detail typically seen in ceremonial figurines. Carved from sycamore wood with a wingspan of approximately 18 centimeters, the object became known as the Saqqara bird. Though initially classified as a simple bird-shaped toy or ceremonial artifact, its unusual design has prompted far-reaching speculation. What distinguishes the Saqqara bird from other avian representations of ancient Egypt is its aerodynamic form. Its body tapers smoothly, the wings are straight and slightly swept back, and it features an upright tail fin rather than the fan tail typical of birds. It lacks feet and exhibits symmetry uncommon in symbolic carvings. Some researchers have noted that its proportions resemble those of a modern glider or model aircraft, leading to hypotheses that the artifact may represent an early understanding of flight dynamics. Proponents of the flight theory argue that the object could have been part of an experimental exploration into gliding or aerodynamic principles. In the late 20th century, engineers and aviation enthusiasts constructed scaled-up replicas of the Saqqara bird and demonstrated that, with minor modifications, the object could achieve short glides when launched under controlled conditions. These experiments, while not definitive, fueled popular interest in the idea that ancient Egyptians may have possessed a rudimentary grasp of aeronautical design. Mainstream Egyptologists, however, maintain a more conservative interpretation. They suggest that the artifact was likely a ceremonial object or perhaps a weather vane or masthead. The bird motif is consistent with Horus symbolism, and the absence of inscriptions or associated writings makes any functional purpose difficult to confirm. The artifact was found among other funerary items, further supporting its classification as symbolic or decorative. There are no records, visual depictions, or related tools that indicate knowledge of human flight in ancient Egypt. The Saqqara bird remains unique, with no known counterparts among the thousands of artifacts excavated from similar sites. The lack of context prevents firm conclusions about its use or meaning. Still, the precision of its form, its aerodynamic resemblance to glider designs, and its deviation from typical symbolic bird carvings continue to invite alternative interpretations. Could it have been a scaled model? A tool for studying wind movement? Or merely an artistic variation of a sacred symbol? The Saqqara bird rests quietly in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, its wings grounded by history, its purpose hovering just out of reach. From the sands of Saqqara, where what may have once hinted at the sky, we now turn our attention to the mountains of China, where a set of stone discs etched with spiral grooves and mysterious symbols continues to stir debate and disbelief. The Dropa stones. In the remote mountains of Bayan Har, on the border between China and Tibet, a story emerged in the 20th century that would blur the lines between archaeology, myth, and controversy. According to reports first circulated in the 1960s, an archaeological expedition in the late 1930s led by Chinese professor Qi Puti allegedly discovered a series of small, round stone discs in caves within the region. These artifacts, later dubbed the Dropa stones, were said to number over 700 and were unlike any other objects found in East Asian archaeological sites. Each stone reportedly measured approximately 22 centimeters in diameter, and featured a perfectly round hole in the center. Most remarkable, however, were the spiral grooves etched into the surfaces, fine, continuous lines that some claimed formed microscopic hieroglyph-like inscriptions. These markings, according to later interpretations, were said to contain information when viewed under magnification. Researchers who studied the discs claimed that the inscriptions told the story of a people called the Dropa, extraterrestrial beings who had crash-landed on Earth thousands of years ago and were unable to return to their home world. The alleged translation of these inscriptions described the Dropa's arrival, their peaceful coexistence with a local tribe, and the struggles they faced due to their physical differences and limited resources. These claims, made public through articles and later books, introduced the Dropa stones into the growing body of ancient astronaut hypotheses, capturing the imagination of fringe theorists and the wider public alike. Mainstream scholars and archaeologists, however, have been deeply skeptical of the entire account. No verified academic reports of the expedition exist. The names of individuals involved, including Qi Puti, do not appear in official university or institutional records. The original location of the stones remains unverified, and the physical artifacts have not been made available for peer-reviewed study or museum display. Alleged photographs of the stones are inconsistent, and some have been dismissed as misidentified ritual objects or outright fabrications. Further confusion has been fueled by later reports that some of the stones had disappeared or were taken to undisclosed locations, preventing additional examination. Efforts to trace the stones or verify their existence through Chinese academic channels have yielded no confirmed results. Critics argue that the story relies heavily on unverifiable sources and lacks the archaeological context necessary to support its claims. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the story of the Dropa stones persists in popular literature, documentaries, and internet speculation. Their alleged features, stone discs with unexplained inscriptions, continue to be cited as evidence of ancient contact with non-human intelligence. Are the Dropa stones an elaborate modern myth, misidentified artifacts, or relics of a civilization now lost to time and memory? From the high-altitude caves of Bayan Har, we now move to the hills of Texas, where an iron object embedded in ancient rock raises unsettling questions about the timeline of human technology. The London Hammer. In the summer of 1936, near the town of London in central Texas, a couple exploring a rock formation discovered an unusual object embedded in a weathered nodule of stone. What they found appeared to be a hammer, its wooden handle partially fossilized and its metal head encased in ancient rock. The object would later be referred to as the London Hammer, and its discovery has fueled decades of speculation about its origin and the geological context in which it was found. The hammer itself is relatively modest in size. The head measures about 15 centimeters in length and is composed of iron with a high level of purity, combined with small amounts of chlorine and sulfur. The handle, partially mineralized, appears to be made of a type of wood that has undergone partial petrification. What makes the object remarkable is the matrix of stone surrounding it, identified by some as Lower Cretaceous rock, which would date to over 100 million years ago. If the hammer were truly embedded in ancient rock of that age, it would present a dramatic anomaly, a clearly human-made tool preserved in a geological layer formed long before humans, or even primates, are believed to have existed. This has led proponents of out-of-place artifact, OOP art, theories to cite the London Hammer as evidence that human civilization, or at least human-level technology, may have existed far earlier than established science accepts. However, geologists and skeptics have challenged this interpretation. Some argue that the rock surrounding the hammer is not actually part of the original Cretaceous formation but rather a concretion, a hardened mass of sedimentary material that can form around objects buried in certain environmental conditions over much shorter time scales. These concretions can solidify within decades or centuries, depending on mineral content and groundwater flow. According to this view, the hammer may have fallen into a cavity and become naturally encased over time, giving the appearance of great antiquity. The composition of the metal head also raises questions. The iron appears unusually pure and resistant to rusting, leading to speculation about ancient metallurgical techniques or unknown methods of preservation. However, no documentation exists regarding metallurgical analysis from peer-reviewed institutions, and the artifact has not been subjected to rigorous testing in a controlled academic setting. The owners of the hammer, who have promoted it as evidence of anomalous history, have kept the object in private custody, limiting access to independent researchers. Without a verified geological context, firm dating, or complete transparency in its study, the London Hammer remains a contentious object. Supporters continue to cite it as a potential challenge to the mainstream chronology of human development, while critics maintain it is a modern tool encased in a relatively recent concretion. Was the London Hammer truly sealed in ancient rock? Or is it a modern artifact misinterpreted through coincidence and incomplete data? From the stonebound mystery in Texas, we journey to the temples of ancient Egypt, where a curious carving on the wall has ignited theories of forgotten technologies and light without flame. The Dendera Light. In the ancient temple complex of Dendera, located on the west bank of the Nile in Egypt, among the richly decorated reliefs that cover the walls and ceilings, there is one particular image that has drawn intense interest, not just from Egyptologists, but also from theorists and researchers seeking signs of ancient technology. Found in the Hathor Temple, a chamber beneath the main structure contains carvings that some claim depict a form of electrical lighting device, now widely referred to as the Dendera light. The reliefs show a series of objects that resemble elongated bulbs or tubes, with a serpent-like figure inside, extending from one end to the other. These are connected to what appears to be a lotus flower at one end, and a jed pillar, an ancient Egyptian symbol of stability, at the other. Priests or human figures are shown holding or supporting the devices, and beneath them are what look like cables or supports. The arrangement of these elements has led to interpretations that the images represent not just symbolic art, but an ancient technological device. Proponents of the electrical theory argue that the bulb-like shapes bear a resemblance to Crookes tubes or early vacuum lamps. The snake inside is interpreted by some as a filament, the lotus base as an insulator, and the jed pillar as a power source or capacitor. This interpretation suggests that the ancient Egyptians may have had access to a form of electrical lighting, an idea that would dramatically alter our understanding of their technological capabilities. Those supporting this theory also point out the lack of soot or smoke residue in many deep inner chambers of Egyptian temples, suggesting that torches or oil lamps may not have been used in those areas. Combined with the curious imagery, this has led to further speculation about alternative lighting methods, perhaps using electricity generated by devices like the Baghdad battery, which is often referenced alongside the Dendera relief. Mainstream Egyptologists reject the electrical interpretation. They argue that the reliefs are entirely symbolic, consistent with known religious iconography. The serpent represents divine energy or creation, the lotus signifies life emerging from the primeval waters, and the jed pillar is a well-established motif associated with Osiris and stability. The entire scene is viewed as a representation of mythological themes, not a technical schematic. Furthermore, there is no archaeological evidence of wires, filaments, power sources, or actual lighting devices from any period of ancient Egypt. The temples contain thousands of inscriptions and artistic representations, but none describe the use of artificial lighting beyond torches, mirrors, or oil lamps. Despite the lack of supporting artifacts, the Dendera light theory continues to capture the imagination of alternative historians. The combination of unusual shapes, ambiguous symbolism, and unexplained architectural features has allowed this interpretation to persist as a tantalizing possibility. Was this simply a symbolic scene, misread through the lens of modern technology? Or does it preserve a visual echo of knowledge long forgotten? From the shadowy chambers of Dendera, we now move into the ancient marshlands of southern Mesopotamia, where small statues with reptilian features challenge assumptions about the forms and faces of early civilization. The Ubaid lizardman figurines. In the ruins of ancient Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers once nourished some of the world's earliest civilizations, archaeologists uncovered a series of unusual figurines that continued to puzzle scholars and fuel speculation. Discovered at the Ubaid archaeological sites of Al-Ubaid, Uar, and Eridu in southern Iraq, these artifacts date to the Ubaid period, approximately 6500 to 3800 BC, predating the Sumerians and the emergence of written history. The figurines are crafted from clay and stand between 10 and 20 centimeters tall. They depict humanoid bodies with distinctly reptilian or amphibian features, elongated heads, slanted eyes, long noses, and tapered faces. Some wear helmets or headdresses, while others appear to hold scepters, nurse infants, or sit in poses of authority. The level of detail suggests intentionality, not artistic distortion or stylization common in prehistoric art. Most intriguing is the uniformity of the reptilian features across multiple figurines and excavation sites. This consistency, combined with the context in which they were found, domestic and ritual areas, has led to various interpretations regarding their cultural and symbolic significance. Mainstream archaeologists interpret the figurines as representations of mythological beings, deities, or fertility symbols. The Ubaid culture is known for its early development of agriculture, settlement building, and sophisticated pottery, but little is known about its religious or social structures. The reptilian features could reflect symbolic associations with water, transformation, or protective spirits, common themes in Mesopotamian mythology. However, the anomalous appearance of the figures has invited alternative theories. Some researchers suggest that the figurines may depict a race of beings with non-human characteristics, whether mythic, symbolic, or, in more speculative circles, extraterrestrial. The lizard-like appearance has been linked to ancient astronaut theories, proposing that advanced beings visited or influenced early human cultures, leaving behind echoes in their art and mythology. Skeptics counter that such interpretations rely on modern projections and lack archaeological context. The figurines were not accompanied by inscriptions, texts, or structures that would provide definitive clues about their identity or function. Without direct evidence of narrative or religious practice, assigning specific meanings to the figurines remains speculative. Despite this, the figurines' design continues to provoke fascination. Their eerie, unfamiliar appearance stands apart from other known art of the region and era. Whether ritualistic icons, totems of belief, or mere imaginative expressions, they reflect a worldview that remains largely hidden from modern understanding. Who were the figures meant to represent? And why were their features so deliberately inhuman? From the arid soil of Abade, we now turn to the high plains of Bolivia, where a mysterious bowl inscribed with foreign symbols challenges assumptions about cultural contact in the ancient world. The Fuente Magna Bowl. In the highlands near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, a discovery emerged in the 1950s that would confound researchers and ignite debates about ancient cultural contact across continents. The artifact, now known as the Fuente Magna Bowl, was reportedly found near the town of Chua, not far from the lake's shoreline. At first glance, the bowl appears to be a large ceremonial or ritual vessel, carved from stone with typical Andean decorative motifs on its outer surface. However, it is the interior that draws intense scrutiny, where inscriptions unlike any other found in South America appear etched into its surface. The inside of the bowl features two distinct types of script. The first resembles Sumerian cuneiform, while the second bears similarities to Proto-Sumerian or pre-cuneiform pictographs. These inscriptions are composed of linear and wedge-shaped characters arranged in a pattern that, to some, suggests a coherent and deliberate form of writing. The idea that such a script, seemingly of Mesopotamian origin, could appear in the Andes has led to claims of transoceanic contact thousands of years before it is recognized in mainstream history. Supporters of the theory argue that the Fuente Magna Bowl may represent evidence of an ancient interaction between the peoples of Mesopotamia and pre-Columbian South America. They point to similarities in symbols and linguistic patterns, as well as the apparent structure of the text, to propose that the inscriptions are more than decorative. Some interpretations suggest the bowl was used in religious ceremonies and may contain a form of offering text or dedication to deities. Mainstream archaeologists, however, remain unconvinced. The provenance of the bowl is unclear, and there is no official archaeological record of its discovery through a professional excavation. Without a stratigraphic context or carbon-datable material directly associated with it, determining its age and origin is problematic. The site where it was reportedly found has not been systematically investigated, and the artifact's chain of custody since discovery has raised concerns about its authenticity. Linguists and epigraphists have expressed skepticism over the alleged Sumerian inscriptions. Some argue that the characters are crude approximations or modern fabrications inspired by known ancient scripts. The stylistic differences between the bowl's Andean exterior and the supposed Mesopotamian interior further complicate efforts to place the object within any established cultural framework. Despite these doubts, the Fuente Magna Bowl continues to capture attention. Its potential implications, if authentic, would challenge current models of human migration, trade, and communication in the ancient world. Yet in the absence of verifiable evidence or comparative artifacts, its status remains unresolved. Was the bowl the result of a forgotten transoceanic journey? A fusion of cultures erased by time? Or a modern artifact misattributed or manipulated to fit a narrative? From the windswept plateaus of Bolivia, we now journey into the labyrinth of coded language, where a manuscript filled with elaborate symbols and indecipherable text continues to baffle linguists, historians, and cryptographers alike. The Voynich Manuscript. Housed today in Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, the Voynich Manuscript is an illuminated codex unlike any other. Composed of approximately 240 vellum pages, this mysterious book is filled with elaborate illustrations, unknown plant species, astronomical diagrams, and most famously, an indecipherable script that has resisted every attempt at translation. Named after Wilfrid Voynich, the rare book dealer who acquired it in 1912, the manuscript's origins, authorship, and purpose remain entirely unknown. Radiocarbon dating of the vellum places the manuscript's creation between 1404 and 1438 C. The ink, pigments, and writing style appear consistent with that time period. Yet, despite its medieval context, the language used in the manuscript, dubbed Voynichese, does not resemble any known script, alphabet, or code. It flows with an internal structure and repetition that suggests a genuine linguistic system, but none of its words or characters match any human language that has been recorded. The manuscript is divided into several thematic sections based on the content of its illustrations. The first section, often referred to as the herbal portion, features drawings of plants that do not correspond to any known species. The next includes what appears to be astronomical or astrological diagrams, circles filled with stars, suns, moons, and human figures. Following that are bathing scenes with nude women immersed in strange pools connected by pipe-like systems, often called the balneological section. A portion with text blocks and accompanying star-like symbols has been interpreted as recipes or instructions. Yet none of these interpretations are definitive. Over the past century, countless cryptographers, linguists, historians, and computer scientists have attempted to decode the manuscript. These efforts have included frequency analysis, linguistic comparison, and more recently, artificial intelligence and machine learning. Some researchers argue that the manuscript exhibits statistical properties consistent with natural human language, while others believe it may be a sophisticated hoax, crafted to simulate meaning without conveying any. Several theories regarding the manuscript's origin have been proposed. Some suggest it was created as a pharmacological or alchemical guide. Others see it as a mnemonic device for esoteric knowledge, encoded to protect its secrets. A few more radical theories even entertain the possibility of extraterrestrial influence, or contact with a lost civilization. None of these hypotheses have been proven. One of the more notable aspects of the Voynich manuscript is how it has maintained its mystery in the face of modern tools designed to unravel ancient texts. Unlike other undeciphered scripts, such as Linear A or the Indus script, which are limited by brevity, the Voynich text is extensive, over 170,000 characters, and contains discernible structure, making its resistance to decryption even more puzzling. No other document in known history quite resembles the Voynich manuscript. Its combination of flowing script, vibrant imagery, and total inscrutability has elevated it beyond mere curiosity into the realm of enduring enigma. From the parchment-covered pages of an unreadable book, we now move toward the forests of Central Europe, where another strange codex written in an undeciphered script continues to hide its meaning beneath unfamiliar symbols and faded ink. The Rohank Codex. Emerging from the shadows of obscurity in the early 19th century, the Rohank Codex remains one of the most perplexing undeciphered texts ever discovered. Named after the Hungarian city of Rohank, now Recknitz, Austria, where it was housed in a private library before being donated to the Hungarian Academy of Sciences in 1838, the manuscript contains over 400 pages filled with a mysterious script, accompanied by detailed illustrations that defy easy classification. The codex is handwritten on paper bearing a watermark believed to date from the 16th century, though some scholars argue that the writing style and iconography suggest a much earlier origin. The language and script have resisted all attempts at interpretation. The script consists of over 200 unique characters, more than typically found in known alphabets or syllabaries. Some believe it to be a constructed script or cipher, others suspect it may represent an entirely lost or invented language. The illustrations, rendered in black ink with occasional colored highlights, add further complexity. They depict scenes of warfare, religious ceremonies, processions, and domestic life. The figures wear clothing associated with various historical and cultural periods, including Byzantine, Ottoman, and Western European styles, leading to confusion about the cultural context of the manuscript. Religious symbols within the codex are equally diverse, with crosses, crescent moons, and sun-like emblems all appearing, sometimes side by side. Numerous theories have been proposed regarding the manuscript's origin and meaning. Some researchers have suggested that the codex might be a chronicle or religious text from an obscure Christian sect. Others argue that it could be a hoax, possibly created in the 18th or 19th century to mislead or amuse collectors of antiquities. The codex's lack of punctuation and irregular character distribution have made linguistic analysis extremely difficult. Several attempts at decipherment have been made over the years. Hungarian scholar Ferenc Finta proposed a system for translating the text into Hungarian, but his work has not been widely accepted. Others have proposed links to Brahmi, Glagolitic, or even runic scripts, but none of these associations have yielded a consistent or verifiable reading. Artificial intelligence tools and statistical analysis have failed to produce a definitive breakthrough, further deepening the mystery. The absence of any companion texts, references, or external corroboration leaves the Rohan Codex in a unique category. Unlike the Rosetta Stone or bilingual inscriptions that have helped crack other ancient scripts, the Codex stands alone, self-contained and silent. Is it a forgotten sacred manuscript, encoded for protection? A lost historical record written in a language that has since vanished? Or an elaborate invention crafted for reasons lost to time? From the faded ink of the Rohan Codex, we now travel south to the island of Crete, where a circular tablet bearing spiral symbols remains one of the most enigmatic artifacts of the ancient Aegean world. The Phaistos Disc. Unearthed in 1908 during excavations at the Minoan Palace complex of Phaistos on the island of Crete, the Phaistos Disc remains one of the most mysterious and controversial artifacts from the ancient world. Discovered by Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier, the disc was found in the basement of a building within the palace ruins, buried beneath a layer of ash dating to the 2nd millennium BC, possibly around 1700 BC. Made of fired clay and measuring approximately 15 centimeters in diameter, the disc is inscribed with a spiral of stamped symbols on both of its sides. The most distinctive feature of the disc is its unique system of pictographic signs, 45 distinct characters arranged in a clockwise spiral, divided by vertical lines into what appear to be words or phrases. The symbols include images of human figures, animals, tools, plants, and abstract shapes. These were not carved by hand but rather pressed into the clay using pre-made stamps, making the disc the earliest known example of movable type printing. The total number of signs is just over 240. Divided into more than 60 groupings, yet no other artifact with the same script has ever been found. This isolation makes decipherment extraordinarily difficult. Unlike Linear A or Linear B, which are also Minoan scripts and found on multiple tablets, the Phaistos disc has no comparative context, no parallel inscriptions, and no associated bilingual texts. Numerous theories have been proposed about the disc's purpose and content. Some researchers suggest it may be a religious hymn, a magical incantation, or a calendrical text. Others propose that it may have been a game board, a teaching tool, or a commemorative object. Without any corroborating evidence, each interpretation remains speculative. The use of pictographs rather than alphabetic or syllabic characters adds further ambiguity. Attempts at decipherment have employed a range of approaches, from statistical analysis to symbolic interpretation and phonetic mapping. Some linguists have attempted to correlate the signs with known Minoan or Mycenaean languages, while others suggest that the disk reflects a language and writing system entirely distinct from others in the region. Artificial intelligence tools have been applied in recent years, yet no definitive breakthrough has emerged. Skepticism about the disk's authenticity has also been voiced. Some have questioned whether it is a genuine Minoan artifact or a modern forgery planted during the early 20th century. However, most archaeologists accept its legitimacy based on stratigraphic context and material analysis. Its manufacture using stamped characters, while unique, is not necessarily inconsistent with Minoan technological capabilities. The Phaistos disk remains on display at the Heraklion Archaeological Museum in Crete, protected in a glass case, still defying interpretation over a century after its discovery. Its symbols spiral inward as if leading to a meaning just beyond reach. From the sunlit halls of Phaistos, we now journey to an English estate where a seemingly ordinary sculpture bears a coded message. A message carved in stone that continues to challenge cryptographers and historians alike. The Shugborough inscription. On the grounds of Shugborough Hall, a stately country estate in Staffordshire, England, stands an ornate stone monument that has long confounded historians and cryptographers. Known as the Shepherd's Monument, the structure was commissioned in the 18th century by Thomas Anson and features a relief based on Nicolas Poussin's painting E.T. in Arcadia Ego, flanked by two reclining stone figures. Yet what draws the most attention is not the artwork, but the enigmatic string of letters carved below it, DOUOSVAVVM. This cryptic inscription, framed by the letters O and D at either end, has resisted definitive interpretation for over 2 centuries. No accompanying documents explain its purpose, and no explanation was recorded by the monument's creators. Despite its relatively recent origin, the sequence has become the subject of intense study and speculation, with countless theories proposed to decipher its meaning. Some researchers have approached the inscription as a cipher, suggesting it encodes a phrase using Latin, English, or a mixture of linguistic systems. Anagrams, acrostics, substitution ciphers, and Masonic codes have all been applied in attempts to uncover the hidden message. Others believe the inscription may contain religious, philosophical, or even alchemical significance, possibly reflecting the interests of the Anson family, who were known to be associated with esoteric traditions and Enlightenment thought. A popular theory links the monument to the Knights Templar and the Holy Grail, drawing on speculative connections between the Shugborough estate and secret societies. This view gained traction in the 20th century with the rise of Grail mythology in popular culture, and books such as Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Proponents point to the pastoral scene, the classical references, and the secrecy surrounding the inscription as evidence of a hidden lineage or buried truth. Skeptics argue that the inscription may have no deeper meaning at all, possibly a private joke, a mnemonic device, or a creative exercise in ambiguity. The lack of contemporary records or supporting artifacts makes it difficult to assess the original intent. Some scholars suggest it may have been a fashionable intellectual puzzle meant to intrigue guests and visitors in an era fascinated by mystery and codes. Despite numerous published interpretations and efforts by professional codebreakers, including cryptanalysts from Bletchley Park, no single solution has gained universal acceptance. The inscription remains unresolved, a puzzle carved in stone for generations to ponder. Is it a forgotten message from a secret order, a personal code known only to its creator, or a deliberate enigma designed to provoke thought without ever offering resolution? From the quiet gardens of Shugborough, we travel across the vast Pacific to a remote volcanic island, where a system of glyphs etched into wooden tablets may preserve the voice of a civilization whose words have never been heard aloud. The Rongorongo script of Easter Island. On the isolated expanse of Easter Island, known to its native inhabitants as Rapa Nui, a system of symbols was once carved into wooden tablets. Mysterious glyphs flowing in alternating directions, preserved not in spoken tales but etched into silence. This writing system, known as Rongorongo, is one of the most enigmatic scripts ever discovered, and to this day, it remains undeciphered. It is the only known indigenous script developed in Oceania, and it offers tantalizing clues to the lost history of a civilization that flourished in profound isolation. The Rongorongo inscriptions were first documented by European missionaries in the 19th century, long after the traditional knowledge required to read them had seemingly vanished. Approximately 24 artifacts bearing the script survive, most of them carved onto wood, often driftwood, due to the island's lack of native forests. The glyphs are composed of stylized images, human figures, animals, tools, plants, celestial forms, and abstract designs, all rendered with elegant repetition and flow. A unique feature of Rongorongo is its boustrophedon writing style. Lines are read in alternating directions, with every other line rotated 180 degrees. This format, rare among the world's scripts, suggests a sophisticated writing tradition. However, the brevity of the texts and the absence of any bilingual inscriptions make decipherment exceedingly difficult. Compounding this challenge is the loss of cultural continuity. By the time the tablets were collected, few islanders could even recognize them, let alone interpret them. Some researchers believe that Rongorongo may have been influenced by early contact with European writing systems, possibly after the island's first recorded encounter with the Spanish in the 18th century. Others argue for an independent origin, citing the script's complexity and visual consistency. Attempts to classify the glyphs as logographic, syllabic, or even mnemonic have been inconclusive. Despite decades of comparative analysis and modern computational efforts, no definitive linguistic structure has been established. The meaning of the texts remains elusive. Some scholars speculate that the tablets contain genealogies, religious chants, or records of astronomical events. Others propose that they functioned as ritual objects or ceremonial aids, possibly memorized and recited by elite scribes or priests. Still, no direct evidence survives to confirm any specific use. The destruction of Rapa Nui's traditional society through disease, slave raids, and colonial suppression played a decisive role in severing the oral and cultural chains that might have explained Rongorongo. Only fragments of legends, the stylized wood, and the undeciphered lines remain. Could Rongorongo preserve the history of the Moai builders, or the memory of the ecological collapse that reshaped the island's fate? Does it contain stories, science, or sacred truths, lost in silence? From the windswept stone platforms of Easter Island, we journey across vast stretches of time and land to the mausoleum of China's first emperor, where a subterranean empire of clay guards a ruler whose burial chamber may still remain untouched. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang. Beneath a man-made hill near Xi'an in China's Shaanxi province lies one of the most monumental and enigmatic burial sites in human history, the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China. Constructed during the 3rd century BC, the tomb complex spans over 50 square kilometers and contains an astonishing array of artifacts and structures. The most famous discovery associated with the site is the terracotta army, thousands of life-sized clay soldiers, horses, and chariots arranged in precise military formation to guard the emperor in the afterlife. Unearthed in 1974 by local farmers digging a well, the terracotta army has become one of the most iconic archaeological finds of the 20th century. The soldiers display individual facial features and hairstyles, suggesting a level of craftsmanship and standardization unique for its time. However, despite decades of excavation around the outer areas of the complex, the central tomb chamber, believed to house the remains of Qin Shi Huang himself, remains sealed and unexplored. Ancient records, particularly those from the historian Sima Qian, describe the tomb as a subterranean palace complete with rivers of mercury, ceilings encrusted with pearls to mimic the night sky, and crossbow traps to deter intruders. Modern remote sensing and soil analysis have confirmed abnormally high levels of mercury in the surrounding soil, lending credibility to these ancient accounts. Yet the burial mound has not been excavated, primarily due to concerns over preserving the contents and the lack of adequate technology to protect what might lie within. The construction of the tomb reportedly involved hundreds of thousands of workers over several decades, beginning shortly after Qin Shi Huang ascended the throne. The emperor, known for his obsession with immortality and control, may have designed his tomb to reflect the universe itself, a microcosm in which he would continue to reign eternally. The layout of the complex mirrors the capital city of Xianyang, and various pits surrounding the central mound contain not only soldiers, but also civil officials, acrobats, musicians, and exotic animals sculpted in clay. The scale of the site and the untouched nature of the burial chamber have led to wide-ranging speculation. Some theories suggest that mechanical devices and intricate engineering may be preserved within. Others propose that the tomb holds scrolls, technologies, or symbolic knowledge lost to later dynasties. Without direct exploration, these ideas remain hypothetical. Chinese authorities have taken a cautious approach, citing the potential for irreversible damage to the site if opened prematurely. As a result, the core of the mausoleum remains one of the last great unopened tombs of the ancient world. What lies beneath the mound? A symbolic afterlife built from the earth? A secret chamber filled with lost knowledge? Or a resting place untouched by time, guarded not only by clay but by the will of the man who sought to conquer death? From the silent armies of Xi'an, we now turn to a single body entombed in mystery, a man preserved in agony, whose final scream echoes through the corridors of ancient Egyptian death. Unknown Man E, the Screaming Mummy. Discovered in 1886 during excavations of the Deir el-Bahari royal cache near Luxor, the mummy known only as Unknown Man E remains one of the most disturbing and enigmatic finds in Egyptology. Unlike the carefully prepared and serenely posed remains typical of ancient Egyptian mummification, this body was found contorted, mouth agape, neck rigid, and limbs drawn tightly inward. The expression, frozen in what appears to be a silent scream, has led to the moniker, the Screaming Mummy. Wrapped hastily in sheepskin, an impure material in ancient Egyptian funerary customs, the body was not embalmed in the traditional way. Instead, it appears to have been preserved with minimal effort, with internal organs left intact and signs of decomposition apparent. This departure from ritual practice has led researchers to speculate that Unknown Man E was not buried with honor but rather condemned in death. Early studies suggested the man may have died violently or under extreme distress. The contorted posture and open jaw led to dramatic theories ranging from torture to poisoning to being buried alive. However, more recent forensic examinations, including CT scans and toxicological testing, have not found conclusive evidence of foul play. No broken bones, signs of strangulation, or lethal substances have been identified. It remains unclear whether the mouth was open at the time of death or became fixed post-mortem due to muscle contraction and the absence of mummification techniques that typically close the jaw. One prominent theory connects the Screaming Mummy to the story of Pentuer, a son of Pharaoh Ramses III who was implicated in a failed palace coup known from the judicial papyrus of Turin. According to this account, the conspirators, including members of the royal harem, plotted to assassinate Ramses III. Pentuer, allegedly involved, was sentenced to death, though the method of execution is not recorded. DNA testing in 2012 revealed that Unknown Man E shares paternal DNA with the mummy of Ramses III, supporting the hypothesis that he may indeed be Pentuer. If this identification is correct, it could explain the unconventional burial. A prince condemned by law may have been denied the sacred rites of passage afforded to Egyptian royalty, wrapped in disgrace, buried without ceremony, and left unmarked to erase his legacy. The scream, then, may be symbolic, not of pain, but of spiritual anguish and eternal unrest. Yet the mystery persists. Why was his body included in the cache among honored royals if he was a traitor? Was his presence an act of familial mercy, political compromise, or later forgiveness? Unknown Man E remains an unsettling anomaly among Egypt's carefully ordered tombs. His expression still speaks, though no one is certain what he was trying to say. From the rapt silence of Dar el-Bahari, we move now into a realm of bone and quartz, a tale scattered across continents, where skulls carved in crystal raise questions about craft, origins, and the echoes of civilizations unseen. The crystal skulls. In museums, private collections, and storied vaults scattered around the world, there exist a number of human skulls carved entirely from clear or milky quartz crystal. Polished to a fine sheen and sculpted with anatomical precision, these artifacts, commonly referred to as the crystal skulls, have captivated the public imagination for over a century. Claimed by some to be ancient relics from pre-Columbian civilizations of Mesoamerica, and by others to be relics of lost civilizations or even extraterrestrial origin, the true nature and origin of the crystal skulls remain shrouded in uncertainty. Among the most famous of these is the Mitchell-Hedges skull, allegedly discovered in the 1920s in the ruins of a Maya city in Belize by British adventurer Frederick Mitchell-Hedges. According to the account, the skull was found beneath a collapsed altar, untouched by time and flawless in form. It weighs roughly 5 kilograms and is carved from a single piece of clear quartz crystal, complete with a detachable jaw. Stories surrounding the artifact have attributed it with psychic powers, strange electromagnetic effects, and a connection to ancient prophecies. Other notable examples include the British Museum skull and the Paris skull, both of which were acquired in the 19th century from collectors and traders. Each is slightly different in size, style, and clarity, but all share the remarkable characteristic of being carved from hard quartz, a material notoriously difficult to work, especially with the tools available to ancient artisans. Proponents of the skull's authenticity argue that such objects could only have been created with lost techniques or technologies unknown to modern scholars. Some believe the skulls originated from Atlantis, Lemuria, or other hypothetical lost civilizations. Others tie them to indigenous legends from the Maya or Aztec, pointing to myths of 13 sacred skulls that hold the secrets of the universe and are destined to reunite. However, extensive testing by institutions such as the British Museum and the Smithsonian has cast doubt on these claims. Microscopic analysis has revealed tool marks consistent with modern rotary wheels and abrasives, suggesting that at least some of the skulls were made in the 19th or early 20th centuries, likely in Europe, possibly as part of the growing fascination with Mesoamerican artifacts during that period. Furthermore, no crystal skulls have been found in documented archaeological excavations in the Americas. Despite the scientific skepticism, the skulls have maintained their allure. Their craftsmanship is undeniably striking, and the absence of definitive provenance only deepens their mystique. Cultural and esoteric movements continue to revere them as objects of power and ancient knowledge, even as scholarly consensus leans toward a modern origin. Were the crystal skulls masterful forgeries, spiritual symbols, or survivors of a civilization whose legacy has vanished beneath time and soil? From the cold clarity of quartz and the gaps in historical record, we move now to the depths of an ancient Chinese tomb, where the body of a noblewoman, preserved in ways that defy natural decay, waits in silence, untouched by time. The Lady of Dai. In 1971, while workers were digging an air raid shelter in the hills of Mwangwi, near the city of Changsha in China's Hunan province, they stumbled upon a burial site that would yield one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Within a multi-layered tomb complex dating to the Western Han Dynasty, circa 2nd century BC, archaeologists uncovered the remarkably well-preserved body of a woman who came to be known as the Lady of Dai, also identified as Xian Jue, the wife of the Marquis of Dai. What made the discovery extraordinary was not just the wealth of artifacts buried with her, lacquerware, silks, food offerings, and medical texts, but the condition of her remains. Unlike most ancient mummies, which are desiccated or skeletonized, the Lady of Dai's body was soft, supple, and almost lifelike. Her skin was intact, her veins still contained traces of blood, and her internal organs, including the lungs and intestines, were preserved well enough for medical examination. Even her last meal, melon seeds, was found in her stomach. The preservation baffled scientists. The tomb had been sealed with remarkable care, using layers of charcoal, clay, and a series of nested coffins, all of which contributed to creating a stable and oxygen-free environment. The body itself had been submerged in an unknown reddish liquid, the composition of which remains partly unidentified despite chemical analysis. No embalming agents akin to those used in Egyptian mummification were found, suggesting that the process was accidental, or the result of an advanced preservation method now lost to time. Autopsies conducted by Chinese medical teams revealed that Xian Zhui was around 50 years old at the time of her death and had suffered from several chronic conditions, including diabetes, clogged arteries, gallstones, and internal bleeding, possibly the cause of her death. Her lifestyle, as inferred from grave goods and dietary analysis, indicated wealth and high status. The opulence of her tomb reflects the importance of the Han elite and their beliefs about the afterlife. Despite extensive study, the exact method of her preservation remains unknown. Modern researchers have attempted to replicate the preservation conditions using similar materials, but no experiment has successfully recreated the outcome. The combination of environmental sealing, fluid chemistry, and burial depth appears to have produced a unique set of circumstances that science cannot yet fully explain. The Lady of Dai is often cited as the best preserved human body from the ancient world. She rests today in the Hunan Provincial Museum, still encased in layers of protection, her preserved form silently confronting our understanding of decay, time, and the limits of human knowledge. From the sealed tombs of the Han Dynasty, we now return to the deserts of Peru, where a collection of ancient mummies, elongated, desiccated, and controversial, continues to raise questions about identity, purpose, and the boundaries of accepted science. The Nazca mummies. In the arid deserts of southern Peru, home to the famous Nazca lines and remnants of a once thriving pre-Columbian culture, a group of mummified remains has emerged in recent years under highly unusual circumstances, sparking intense debate, skepticism, and fascination. Known collectively as the Nazca mummies, these specimens came to public attention around 2015, when a team of independent researchers and treasure hunters revealed images and videos of what appeared to be humanoid figures with distinctly non-human features. The mummies are small in stature, with some less than half the size of an adult human. Their heads are elongated, their facial features simplified, and most notably, their hands and feet display only 3 long, slender fingers or toes. The skin appears desiccated but intact, grayish in color, and the bodies have been posed in fetal positions. CT scans and X-rays released by the discoverers reveal internal organs and skeletal structures that seem to mirror human anatomy in some areas and diverge in others. According to those promoting the discovery, the mummies were found in a tomb near the Nazca Plateau and are believed to be over 1,000 years old. DNA testing reportedly shows a mixture of human and unidentified genetic material. Some claim the beings are a new species, while others suggest they are artificially modified human remains created for unknown ceremonial or cultural purposes. Mainstream scientists and archaeologists have responded with caution and criticism. The Peruvian government has not officially sanctioned the excavation or study of the mummies, and many experts have questioned the authenticity of the remains. Some have alleged that the specimens are modern fabrications, either human remains that have been manipulated post-mortem or models created from a combination of bone, clay, and organic tissue. There are concerns about contamination, lack of proper chain of custody for samples, and absence of peer-reviewed publication in recognized scientific journals. Others point to ethical and legal issues surrounding the handling of the remains. If the mummies are human or partially human, their removal, study, and public display may violate international and national heritage laws. Skeptics argue that without proper archaeological context, any interpretation of the mummy's origin or meaning is speculative at best. Despite this, the Nazca mummies continue to generate attention through media coverage, documentaries, and public presentations. Supporters insist that further research could unveil a chapter of pre-Columbian history that has been overlooked or suppressed, while critics view the phenomenon as pseudoscience that distracts from genuine archaeological work in the region. Are the Nazca mummies evidence of a lost culture, ceremonial practice, or something more extraordinary? From the sands of Nazca and the controversy they stir, we now turn to another desert mystery, this time in the far reaches of western China, where unusually preserved human remains suggest ancient migration routes and a blending of distant worlds. The Darim mummies. In the remote Darim basin of China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, beneath the shifting sands of the Taklamakan Desert, archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of remarkably preserved mummies, bodies that challenge conventional understandings of ancient migration, cultural exchange, and the peopling of early Asia. Known collectively as the Darim mummies, these individuals were buried between 2000 BC and 200 CE, and their discovery has stirred both scientific curiosity and political sensitivity. The most striking feature of the Darim mummies is their physical appearance. Unlike the modern populations of western China, many of the mummies exhibit distinctly Caucasoid features: tall stature, high cheekbones, deep-set eyes, and in several cases, light-colored hair that remains visible after millennia. Their clothing, woven from wool and felt, displays sophisticated patterns and techniques. Some were buried with tall, pointed hats, boots, and cloaks, garments more reminiscent of Bronze Age European cultures than of traditional Chinese burial attire. The dry desert climate, combined with salt-rich soil and shallow graves, created ideal conditions for natural mummification. Bodies were preserved with minimal decay, and in some cases, even facial expressions and eyelashes remain intact. The most famous among them is the so-called Beauty of Lulan, a woman buried over 3,800 years ago whose serene features and long auburn hair have captured global attention. Genetic studies conducted in the early 21st century have provided further insight. Analyses of mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome markers indicate a mix of Western and Eastern Eurasian ancestry, suggesting that the Darim Basin was once a nexus of cultural and genetic exchange. This supports the idea that Indo-European-speaking peoples, possibly linked to the Tocharians, migrated eastward along early trade routes that would later form part of the Silk Road. The implications are significant. The presence of people with Western Eurasian features and culture so far east, at such an early date, suggests long-distance migration and interaction well before the rise of formalized trade networks. The grave goods, mirrors, wooden combs, grain, and even musical instruments indicate a complex and self-sufficient society with knowledge of agriculture, textiles, and craft production. Not all questions have been answered. The precise origins of these populations, their languages, and the reasons for their eventual disappearance remain unclear. The mummy's discovery has also sparked controversy within modern political contexts, as their heritage intersects with contemporary ethnic and cultural identities in the region. Despite these complexities, the Darim mummies offer an extraordinary glimpse into the movements and mingling of ancient peoples. They stand as silent witnesses to forgotten migrations, the blending of worlds, and the intricacies of human identity shaped across continents. From the arid tombs of Xinjiang, we return once more to the Peruvian plateau, where massive geoglyphs etched into the earth stretch across the desert, monumental shapes that can only be fully seen from the sky. The Nazca Lines. Etched across the sun-baked plains of southern Peru, the Nazca Lines stretch for miles, hundreds of enormous geoglyphs drawn into the desert crust between 500 BC and 500 CE. These vast designs include geometric shapes, spirals, trapezoids, and an array of stylized animals: a hummingbird with wings outspread, a spider with impossibly long legs, a monkey with a coiled tail. Some figures measure over 300 feet in length, their scales so massive that their full form is visible only from the air. First brought to global attention in the 20th century with the advent of flight, the Nazca Lines have since become one of the most iconic and debated ancient features on Earth. Created by removing the dark surface stones to reveal lighter earth beneath, the lines have remained preserved due to the region's stable climate, arid, windless, and rarely touched by rain. The simplicity of their construction contrasts sharply with the complexity of their design and potential meaning. Traditional explanations suggest that the lines were part of ceremonial practices. Archaeological evidence points to the Nazca people as the creators, an ancient Andean civilization known for their ceramics, textiles, and intricate irrigation systems. Some researchers believe the lines were offerings to deities or part of ritual processions, possibly connected to water, fertility, or astronomical cycles. The alignment of certain lines with solstices and celestial events supports the idea that they may have functioned as an astronomical calendar or observatory spread across the desert. Other theories are more speculative. Some suggest that the geoglyphs mark subterranean water sources, forming part of a ritual landscape dedicated to ensuring rainfall in a parched environment. Others interpret the shapes as symbols in a spiritual or shamanic cosmology, an attempt to communicate with gods, spirits, or ancestors. The sheer scale of the figures may have been intended for divine eyes, not human ones. Alternative theorists have proposed even bolder ideas. Since many of the geoglyphs are fully visible only from above, some have argued they were created with aerial perspectives in mind, suggesting either balloon flight by the Nazca or, more controversially, assistance from beings with the ability to fly. These claims, while captivating, remain unsupported by archaeological evidence and are not widely accepted in academic circles. Excavations near the lines have uncovered wooden stakes used as alignment tools, showing that the Nazca had the geometric knowledge and practical skills to construct such vast patterns without aerial guidance. Yet, even with these insights, the deeper meaning behind the figures remains elusive. Why these animals? Why such immense scale? And what purpose did they serve in a culture so otherwise grounded in everyday survival? Despite decades of research, the Nazca lines resist simple explanation. They remain vast, silent, and strange, testaments to human creativity, ritual, and a worldview both alien and familiar. From the geometric vastness of Peru's desert canvas, we now cross into the American Southwest, where rocks move of their own accord, tracing silent trails across the cracked earth in a mystery of motion and time. The Sailing Stones of Death Valley. Deep within the desolate expanse of California's Death Valley lies a remote and sun-scorched basin known as Racetrack Playa. Here, a phenomenon has puzzled observers for over a century. Massive rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, appear to move across the dry lakebed entirely on their own. These so-called sailing stones leave long, meandering trails behind them in the cracked mud, as though silently guided by invisible hands. First documented in the early 20th century, the sailing stones inspired both scientific curiosity and imaginative speculation. The tracks vary in direction, length, and shape, some curving smoothly, others zigzagging or abruptly changing course. At times, multiple stones seem to have moved in parallel, while others nearby remain still. Yet no one had ever witnessed them in motion, and the mechanisms behind their movement remained hidden for decades. The playa itself is a flat, barren stretch that floods with water on rare occasions, creating a thin, slippery layer over a hard clay surface. When the water evaporates, it leaves behind a mirror-like crust. Theories to explain the sailing stones range from magnetic forces and underground vibrations to more outlandish ideas involving paranormal activity or extraterrestrial influence. None could be conclusively proven without direct observation of the movement. In 2014, a breakthrough came when researchers from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography set up time-lapse cameras and GPS-tracked stones on the playa. What they documented finally solved the mystery, at least in mechanical terms. During the winter, under very specific conditions, a shallow pool of water would freeze overnight into thin sheets of ice. As the sun rose and began to melt the ice, light winds pushed the thawing sheets across the surface, slowly dragging the rocks along the slick clay beneath. The result, a rare and delicate balance of water, temperature, and wind, capable of moving heavy stones at just a few inches per second. Though the physical process is now understood, the phenomenon remains deeply evocative. Few natural events demonstrate such a subtle interplay of forces, so understated, so easily missed. The idea that in one of the hottest, driest places on Earth, massive stones can glide with the gentlest of touch, still resonates beyond the scientific explanation. Are the sailing stones merely a geological curiosity? Or are they a symbol of nature's quiet capacity for wonder, where motion occurs not in spectacle, but in silence? From the gliding paths of Death Valley, we now travel across the Atlantic to a moss-covered field in Scotland, where a massive, ancient stone etched with mysterious symbols challenges our understanding of prehistoric communication. The Cocknose Stone. Hidden beneath the moss and turf of a quiet field near Clydebank, Scotland, the Cocknose Stone is one of the largest and most elaborately inscribed ancient rock surfaces in all of Europe. Measuring over 40 feet in length and nearly 26 feet in width, the sandstone slab is adorned with an array of mysterious carvings, spirals, concentric circles, cup marks, linear grooves, and interconnected symbols, etched into its surface with no accompanying explanation or context. First officially documented in 1887 by the Reverend James Harvey, the Cocknose Stone has since become a focal point for researchers of prehistoric art. Believed to date from the Neolithic or early Bronze Age, the stone's carvings are classified as cup and ring marks, a form of petroglyph found throughout Atlantic Europe, but nowhere as concentrated or as complex as here. Over 90 such symbols are spread across its surface, their meanings lost in the depths of prehistory. The carvings are both precise and enigmatic. Some of the cup marks are shallow depressions, arranged in seemingly intentional patterns. Others are surrounded by multiple rings, sometimes intersected by straight or curved lines. A few appear linked to one another by channels, like constellations of meaning carved in stone. But no definitive interpretation has ever emerged. Over the decades, theories have abounded. Some suggest the symbols represent a primitive form of mapping, of territory, celestial bodies, or seasonal events. Others believe they may have served a ritualistic function, marking a sacred site or ceremonial calendar. More speculative ideas posit that the carvings encode mathematical knowledge, astronomical cycles, or shamanic visions. Without textual records or corroborating artifacts, every hypothesis remains open-ended. In 1965, due to concerns about vandalism and erosion, authorities made the controversial decision to bury the stone under a protective layer of soil. For over 50 years, it remained hidden from view, known only through drawings and early photographs. In 2015, archaeologists from the University of Glasgow temporarily re-excavated the stone for documentation using high-resolution imaging and 3D mapping, allowing for a new generation of analysis. The results reaffirmed the Cocknose Stone's uniqueness, but also its elusiveness. While modern tools can capture its form in fine detail, the purpose behind the carvings continues to evade interpretation. No associated artifacts or structures have been discovered in direct connection with the stone, and its cultural context remains fragmented and speculative. Is the Cocknose Stone a forgotten language? A map of the stars? A ceremonial altar for a people whose worldview has vanished without trace? From the moss-covered symbols of ancient Scotland, we now turn to the myths and epics of the Indian subcontinent, where ancient texts describe flying machines, known as vimanas, soaring through the skies with a technology that seems far ahead of its time. Vimanas in ancient India. Within the richly layered texts of ancient Indian literature, especially the Vedas, the Mahabharata, and the Ramayana, there appear repeated references to fantastical flying machines known as vimanas. These aerial vehicles, described in both poetic and technical terms, are portrayed as chariots of the gods, ships of kings, and instruments of war that soared through the skies long before the age of flight. The Sanskrit word vimana initially referred to palaces or temples, but over time came to denote vehicles capable of flight. In the Ramayana, the Pushpaka Vimana of Ravana is described as a magnificent flying palace, complete with windows, multiple levels, and the ability to travel vast distances. It is said to move with the speed of the wind and to rise and descend vertically, details that, when viewed through a modern lens, suggest capabilities resembling those of aircraft. In the Mahabharata, references become more complex. Some vimanas are described as capable of launching projectiles, creating sound and light phenomena, or performing sudden aerial maneuvers. These accounts often occur in the context of divine warfare, where celestial weapons and vehicles blur the line between mythology and what some have interpreted as advanced technology. Further intrigue comes from later texts like the Vaimanika Shastra, a Sanskrit treatise purportedly dictated in the early 20th century by a mystic in a trance state. It contains descriptions of vimanas, their construction, materials, propulsion methods, and even pilot training. Though dismissed by most scholars as a modern fabrication lacking historical basis, the text has fueled speculation about ancient India's technological legacy and the possibility of lost knowledge. Mainstream historians generally interpret the Vimana stories as symbolic, mythological expressions of divine power and cosmic travel. The ornate descriptions, in this view, serve a literary or theological purpose rather than reflecting physical reality. The absence of archaeological evidence, no physical remnants of such machines, no technical blueprints from the ancient period, reinforces this interpretation. However, alternative researchers have long argued that the consistency and technical nuance of Vimana descriptions across centuries suggests something more. They point to the precision of measurements, the mention of metals, engines, and aerodynamics as clues that ancient authors may have been referencing real or remembered technologies, now forgotten or destroyed. Some even speculate about external influences, contact with other civilizations, or even otherworldly sources of knowledge. Despite the debate, the Vimanas continue to occupy a unique space in ancient literature, not merely flights of fancy, but persistent images of flight in a time when such concepts were supposedly unimaginable. From the soaring craft of Sanskrit epics, we now descend into the ruins of a once great city, where scorched stone and traces of radiation raise questions about destruction on a scale unmatched in ancient history. Ancient nuclear sites in Mohenjo-daro. In the heart of Pakistan's Sindh province, the ruins of Mohenjo-daro rise silently from the Indus Valley, once a thriving metropolis of one of the world's earliest urban civilizations. Established around 2500 BC, the city featured advanced urban planning, grid-aligned streets, multi-story buildings, and complex drainage systems, remarkable achievements for their time. Yet amid this evidence of sophistication, an unsettling anomaly has stirred enduring speculation, signs of sudden, intense destruction that some claim resemble the aftermath of a nuclear blast. The idea emerged in the mid-20th century when archaeologists discovered bodies sprawled across streets as if caught unawares, lying unburied for millennia. Unlike typical burials found elsewhere in the Indus Valley, these skeletons appeared unceremoniously scattered, many face down or clumped in unnatural positions. Some researchers noted unusually high levels of radiation in the area, leading to provocative theories that Mohenjo-daro was destroyed by a catastrophic event far beyond the known capabilities of its time. Proponents of the ancient nuclear war hypothesis point to vitrified stone, sand and clay materials fused at extreme temperatures, and charred structural remains. They cite passages from ancient Indian epics like the Mahabharata that describe blinding lights, thunderous explosions, and incinerating heat in battles among gods and heroes. To some, these accounts are mythologized memories of real, devastating technologies once wielded by advanced or now lost civilizations. However, mainstream archaeologists urge caution. The scattered skeletons, they argue, likely result from natural disasters, warfare, or disease, and the number of such remains is relatively small in proportion to the overall site. Studies conducted on supposed radiation levels have yielded inconsistent results, often within natural background ranges. The evidence of vitrification has been attributed to localized fires, not temperatures consistent with nuclear detonation. Moreover, no traces of advanced weaponry, reactors, or infrastructure required to support such technology have ever been found at Mohenjo-Daro or neighboring Harappan sites. The city's decline is more commonly attributed to environmental factors, changes in river patterns, drought, or a gradual societal collapse. Yet, the mystery persists. The sudden abandonment, the unburied dead, and the absence of rebuilding effort leave questions that archaeology has yet to fully resolve. Whether the site witnessed an unprecedented disaster or simply reflects the complex end of a great urban culture remains unknown. Was Mohenjo-Daro the victim of nature, of human conflict, or of an event far stranger than conventional history allows? From the scorched silence of the Indus Valley, we now journey to the sacred chambers of ancient temples, where sound itself was carved into stone, resonating through pillars, halls, and altars in ways that defy modern understanding. Acoustic properties of ancient temples. Across the ancient world, from southern India to Malta, from Egypt to South America, certain temples and megalithic structures exhibit an extraordinary feature that modern science is only beginning to fully investigate: acoustics designed with startling precision. These sacred spaces, often constructed millennia ago without written plans or mechanical tools, seem to manipulate sound in ways that go far beyond aesthetic or accidental resonance. They respond to voice and instrument with echoes, vibrations, and standing waves, transforming sound into an immersive experience that transcends architecture. In India's Vithala temple at Hampi, the massive stone pillars of the musical mandapa can produce audible musical notes, when struck gently, each resonating with a clear, distinct pitch. In the ancient hypogea of Malta, especially the Hal-Saflieni hypogeum, the oracle room resonates powerfully at a frequency of 111 Hz, a sound that seems to permeate the stone and affect listeners physically, as if the space itself is humming in tune with the human body. In Peru's Chavín de Huántar temple complex, narrow stone corridors and underground canals are believed to have created deliberate acoustic effects to disorient or elevate participants during ritual ceremonies. These phenomena have inspired researchers from multiple disciplines: archaeology, acoustics, anthropology, and neuroscience, to examine whether ancient builders intentionally harnessed sound for spiritual, psychological, or physiological purposes. Recent experiments suggest that certain frequencies produced in these environments can influence brain states, promoting altered perception, calm, or trance. In this context, sacred spaces may have functioned not just as places of worship, but as instruments for transformation. While some dismiss the idea as coincidental, arguing that echoes and resonance are natural byproducts of enclosed stone spaces, others point to the consistency of acoustic features across vast geographic and cultural boundaries. In some temples, architectural elements like curved ceilings, parabolic walls, or specific pillar placements seem purpose-built to enhance or direct sound. The effort to achieve such effects, without modern equipment, implies a level of empirical knowledge about sound behavior that surpasses mere intuition. Yet much remains unexplained. There are no surviving records from these cultures explicitly describing acoustic intent, and reconstructions must rely on modern technology to model how sound would have behaved at the time of construction. The intersection of archaeology and sound science is still developing, and definitive answers remain elusive. Were these ancient temples designed to speak to the gods, or to tune the human mind into altered states of consciousness? Were they acoustic calendars, sonic sanctuaries, or tools for ritual communication beyond language? From the reverberating stones of sacred halls, we now plunge beneath the waves to a stretch of submerged rock in the Caribbean, where an underwater pathway challenges the boundaries between natural formation and forgotten civilization. The Bimini Road. Beneath the turquoise waters off the coast of North Bimini in the Bahamas lies a submerged formation of massive stone blocks arranged in a pattern that has perplexed divers and researchers for decades. Known as the Bimini Road, this underwater structure stretches for over half a kilometer and consists of large, flat, rectangular limestone slabs, many aligned with remarkable regularity, as though laid intentionally by ancient hands. Discovered in 1968 by a team of divers and brought to international attention by supporters of the Atlantis legend, the Bimini Road quickly became a focal point of debate between mainstream geologists and alternative historians. The stones, some weighing several tons, rest on the seafloor in a linear or curving pattern. To the untrained eye, they resemble the remains of a paved roadway, wall, or dock, evidence, perhaps, of a sunken city now lost beneath the ocean. Those who support the theory of ancient civilization argue that the layout and shape of the blocks are too deliberate to be natural. Some stones appear to be fitted together or stacked in layers. The overall configuration, they claim, suggests an engineered structure, possibly dating back thousands of years, perhaps even to the time of a hypothetical pre-Ice Age culture. Proponents have connected the site to the writings of Plato, who described Atlantis as an advanced island civilization that disappeared beneath the sea in a cataclysm around 9,000 years before his time. Mainstream geologists, however, interpret the Bimini Road as a natural formation. According to this view, the structure is the result of a geological process known as beach rock formation, where sedimentary rock forms along coastlines and then fractures along straight lines due to tidal action and erosion. Over time, slabs of this beach rock can break off and settle on the ocean floor in patterns that mimic man-made arrangements. Studies conducted in the decades following the discovery have dated the stones to approximately 2,000 years ago, far more recent than the timeline proposed by Atlantis theorists. Despite these explanations, the mystery persists. Some divers report finding right angles, notches, and features resembling tool marks, though skeptics argue that such impressions can arise from natural erosion. The allure of the unknown, amplified by the sea's shimmering light and the legends surrounding lost civilizations, continues to draw attention to the site. Is the Bimini Road a submerged relic of a forgotten chapter in human history? Or a stunning coincidence of nature, mistaken for a monument built by ancient hands? From sunken cities and ancient scripts to unexplained machines and temples that sing, these mysteries stretch across continents and millennia, each one a fragment left behind, etched in stone, buried in sand, or carved beneath the sea. Some offer clues. Others only deepen the silence. They are not answers. They are questions, frozen in time, waiting.